And joining us now from South Carolina, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who's just back from a trip to the U.S. border with Mexico. Senator, you were part of a delegation of Republican senators that went down to the border on Friday. How serious is the surge of people illegally across the border, especially of these unaccompanied minors? And what can you tell us about the conditions for those minors, especially the ones being held in Border Patrol facilities?
Well, number one, you got a facility designed for 80 kids with about 1,000 in it, so that's pretty bad. He needs to apologize, President Biden, to the Border Patrol agents and their families for putting them through this. We're being overwhelmed at the border. It's not a crisis. It's a complete loss of sovereignty down there. I've been twice in the last 2 months. And here's what I learned this time that was different than last time. I had a 2-star Border Patrol supervisor tell me that they briefed the Biden transition team that if you do away with the Remain in Mexico policy, where people have to wait in Mexico for their court date regarding asylum, we'll be overwhelmed. If you change the policy regarding unaccompanied minors, we'll be overwhelmed. They were told this, they did it anyway. And the description I heard by the press secretary about the border reminded me a lot of what Baghdad Bob was saying about the Iraqi war. She needs to go down there. These facilities are being overrun. 10% of the people are COVID positive, the children, and they're very intermingled, and the Border Patrol agents and their families are American heroes.
Senator, you say that the Biden policies are a magnet for illegal immigration, but I want to ask you about a bill that you are proposing. The Secure and Protect Act would mandate asylum claims from the Northern Triangle countries must be filed there in those countries or Mexico, not in the U.S. But it also says if families cross the border seeking asylum, which would be illegal, they can stay together for 100 days, not 20. I can understand the humanitarian instinct behind that, but wouldn't that also be a magnet for illegal immigration?
No, because I wrote this bill with input from the Border Patrol people, the agents and the customs folks. They said under our current law, you can only hold an unaccompanied a minor for 20 days. So we want to keep families together, not separate them. They told me if they had 100 days with additional judges, they could render verdicts in the asylum claims and never let the families go. What she said is going to make the problem worse in your last interview. She said that any unaccompanied minor that comes with a phone number, we're going to call the parents who are here in this country legally and reunite the family. So we're going to have a flood based on this interview. All these kids have numbers on their wrist. Well, they already have parents or family members here illegally. Now we're going to reunite them. We're not going to turn 18-year-olds away. Well, Jay Johnson, during the Obama administration, was on a plane sending unaccompanied minors back to their home country. You need to do two things. You need to make sure nobody's released until their case is adjudicated in the United States. You should keep them in Mexico or their home country, and you should be turning every unaccompanied minor away after they've been tested for human trafficking abuse back to their home country, and it will stop this. If you don't, we'll have $150,000 a month by the summer.
Senator, I want to change subjects with you President Biden has come down hard on Republican legislators in traditionally red states voting to restrict voting rights. Take a look at what he said in his news conference.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick.
Senator, are Republicans going too far in some of these various states?
You know what's sick is have the President of the United States to play the race card continuously in such a hypocritical way. He said the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Well, he made an hour speech when he was a senator suggesting the filibuster was the best thing for the Senate to make it different than the House. This is a letter signed by 61 senators in 2017 when we had the House, the Senate, and the White House, 27 Democrats saying, please keep in place the filibuster. What's sick is H.R. 1. federalizing state elections. In our Constitution, states supposed to run elections. H.R. 1 is the biggest power grab in the history of the country. It institutionalizes ballot harvesting. It does away with the voter ID requirement. It will take over every election in every state. It makes the Federal Election Commission a partisan commission. It will no longer be bipartisan. So that's the power grab we're standing up to. To my friends in Georgia, they had the highest turnout in the history of Georgia. We had 150-something million people vote. So every time a Republican does anything, we're a racist. If you're a white conservative, you're a racist. If you're a black Republican, you're either Prop or Uncle Tom. They use the racism card to advance a liberal agenda, and we're tired of it. H.R. 1 is sick, not what they're doing in Georgia.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the provisions in Georgia, and these are specific ones that a lot of people are having heartburn about, Senator. It would limit the number and location of drop boxes. It allows counties to cut off early voting at 5 p.m. before a lot of working people get off and could go vote. And this is the one that I think is creating the biggest fuss. It prohibits, it makes it a crime to give food or drink to voters waiting in line. Senator, why on earth, if Americans are willing to wait in hours to vote, would you make it a crime for people to come and give them a bottle of water?
Well, all I can say is that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I agree with you there. But in Georgia, you had an explosion of mail-in balloting. The Carter-Baker Commission in 2005 looked at our election system that they had two warnings for us. Absentee mail voting is ripe for fraud, and ballot harvesting, where an individual can collect ballots on behalf of other people, is a threat to democracy as we know it. Both of those provisions are in H.R. 1. So if you don't like what they're doing in Georgia, you can go to court and stop them. But what they're doing with H.R. 1 is destroying the ability of any state to run elections, doing away with voter ID, changing the Federal Election Commission to make it partisan, and institutionalizing national ballot harvesting, which would be a disaster to our elections.
New subject. After the terrible mass shootings over the last 2 weeks, President Biden has made it clear, and Democrats have made it clear, there's going to be a new push for gun legislation. Here was your reaction to that, along with the reaction from Vice President Harris.
Every time there's a tragic shooting in this country, the left uses it as a reason to grab a gun of a lawful gun owner.
Stop pushing the false choice that this means everybody's trying to come after your guns. That is not what we're talking about.
Senator, first of all, the two bills that the House has passed, the Senate is now considering, have to do with background checks. They wouldn't take away your guns. And what's wrong with a serious debate after all of these shootings about assault weapons, and especially about large capacity magazines, which a lot of studies show contribute to these mass killings?
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong about debate. As a matter of fact, I would challenge Senator Schumer to bring the assault weapons ban to the floor of the United States Senate. It won't get 50 votes, much less 60. I own an AR-15. If there's a natural disaster in South Carolina where the cops can't protect my neighborhood, my house will be the last one that the gang will come to because I can defend myself. You don't have to have an AR-15, but if you have one lawfully, I think you should be allowed to keep it. Most of these problems have a lot to do with mental health. Count me in for addressing that issue. Red flag laws exist in 19 states. There's some things we can do, but at the end of the day, if you think an assault weapons ban is what the country needs, bring it to the floor of the United States Senate and vote on it. I welcome that debate.
Well, let me ask you about that, Senator. I got about a minute left. You are pushing a red flag bill, and the idea would be if you've been adjudicated as being a danger to yourself or other people, then they could take away your gun. But as you know, there are some gun rights groups that disagree with that and say that you're doing away with people's due process. And I guess that's the question. Is it seems like there's no possibility for any reform.
Well, I think there is. There's 1 million people who've been adjudicated a danger to themselves or others at state court levels, and the adjudications are not in the background system. Alice Bolton was a person that was found not guilty by reason of insanity of trying to threaten President Bush. Her adjudication was not in the background system. She bought a gun and tried to kill people at a local school. I think most people would like to have these adjudications into the system, and any red flag law has to have ample and robust due process. So count me in for dealing with the mental health aspects of this. Count me in for trying to have common sense background checks to get the best information into the system. And if you fail a background check, count me in for telling the local cops that the individual failed it. But you know, assault weapons ban, bring it up. Let's vote on it.
Senator Grimm, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Always good to talk with you, sir.
Thank you.